today we'll be solving equations with rational numbers and also rational coefficients. And so when I say coefficient, so if you look at this example right here, 4x minus 7 equals 5. A coefficient is this number right here, okay? It is with the number, it's with the variable, so okay? I can probably help you remember, it is with the variable, all right? And then our numbers, -7 and 5 are your constants. All right, so, and today we're going to be looking at rational numbers, which are fractions and decimals today, when we're solving equations. All right, and we are going to first solve equations with fractions. And to do that, we're going to determine the least common denominator of each set of fractions. Now, when we determine the least common denominator of each set of these fractions, then we're going to use that least common denominator and multiply it to then we'll no longer have a fraction when we're solving equations. So let's look at number 1. Our least common denominator for 2/3 and 3/4 is 12. All we're doing right now is identifying the least common denominator for number 1, 2, and 3. So 3 and 4 can both go with 12. For number 2, our least common denominator, we got 2, 5, and 3. It's 30. 30 is our least common denominator. For number 3, our least common denominator is 8. Both 4 and 8 can go into 8. All right, let's look at our first example. Let's look at example A. We have 1/3 x plus 1/2 equals 5/6x minus 5/2. Now look at our denominators. What is our least common denominator? All right, it is 6, okay? We're going to take our least common denominator, and we are going to distribute our least common denominator 6 to everything inside our in the parentheses. Okay, using the least common denominator, when we distribute 6 to each fraction, we will then no longer have a fraction. So let's look and see. So 6 times 1/3, and if you want to do it out to the side, that's fine. And again, that's top times top. And then bottom, remember underneath the whole number there's a 1. And 6 divided by 30 is 2. So 6 times 1/3 is 2. So this is 2x. 6 times 1/2, we can do that out to the side, is 3. So this is plus 3. Notice we no longer have fractions. Bring down your equal sign. Now we have 6 times 5/6. Well, 6 times 5/6 is 5. Okay, and then if you just simplify across, you are left with just 5. So that's 5x. All right, and we have 6 times a negative 5/2. All right, and again, you can simplify diagonally. So 3 times -5 is -15. All right, there we are. No fraction. So now we're back where we were earlier this week. All right, so now let's solve. Okay, we can subtract 2x on both sides. That creates a 0 pair, and you're left with 3 equals 3x minus 15. All right, and then we are going to add 15 to both sides. We're going to move our constant to the other side. That creates a 0 pair, so we're left with 3x equals 18. We're going to do the inverse and divide by 3. equals 6. Let's go ahead and try B. Again, we're going to determine the least common denominator of our fractions. Okay, and we only have 2 fractions in this one. So 4 and 2, both of them, 4 will be our least common denominator. 4 can go into 4, 2 can go into 4. All right, and again, we're just going to multiply everything inside the parentheses. So 4 times 3 halves, 3/4, okay? And then so 4 and 4 will cancel out, so we're left with 3 times x. And we can do that out to the side. So they do simplify out, right? And so you're just left with 3. Remember, there's a 1 underneath, okay? 4 times a negative 2 is negative 8. 4 times 1/2, half of 4 is 2x. And then 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. All right? Make sure you're multiplying everything inside the entire equation. All right, let's go ahead and solve for the value of x. We're going to subtract 2x on both sides. And you're left with 1x minus 8 equals negative 16. Make sure you bring down negative 16. And then we're going to move our constants to one side. And now we're left with x equals negative 8. All right. Let's do one more example. The last one that we'll do is C. And look at your common denominator. Look at your denominators of 5 and 8. And determine a least common denominator. And in this case, it will be 40. And we're going to distribute 40 to every thing inside the parentheses. So we're going to do 40 times x, which is 40x. 40 times a negative 1/5, okay, which is 5 can go into both of them, right? So that simplifies out. So that is negative 8. Okay, that's negative and a positive. 40 times 7/8. So 8 can go into 40, right? And then 40, 8 divided by 8 is 1. 40 divided by 8 is 5. 5 times 7 is 35x. All right. So we have all of our x's on the right side, so I am going to subtract 40x on both sides. That creates a 0 pair, and have negative 8 equals negative 5x. And I'm going to divide by negative 5 on both sides, and I am going to simplify that out. A negative and a negative is a positive, so please simplify that out. And you're more than welcome to keep it 8/5. All right, example D is just a little bit more challenging. We're not going to worry about that one. Now let's move on to more rational numbers, but more specifically, some decimals. All right, now we can also eliminate decimals and not have to work with decimals, just like we did with fractions, okay? And the way we're going to do that is we're going to do very similar. We are going to multiply, but we don't have a common denominator, so that's not going to work here, okay? So if I were to make 1.2, let's write that on the side, 1.2, 8/10, and 3 4/10. If I were to make them whole numbers, what is a quick method for us to make them whole numbers? Yeah, that would make them a whole number. Okay, when I move it 1 times the right for each I'm actually multiplying by 10. Okay? So again, I'm going to distribute 10 to everything inside the parentheses. So 10 times 1 and 2 tenths is now 12x. 10 times positive 1 is positive 10. 10 times 8 tenths, 8x. 10 times 3 and 4 tenths is now 34. And there we are, no more decimals. So let's go ahead and solve for the value of x. We're going to subtract 8x on both sides. So I have 4x plus 10 equals 34. Now I'm going to subtract 10 on both sides. So we can do 4x equals 24. Do the inverse and divide by 4. And that leaves us with x equals 6. All right, let's do one more example together. Example B. Okay, I notice to get a whole number for 2 and 4800ths and 1 and 400ths that I want to move the decimal twice. Okay, and to move the decimal twice, I would have to multiply it by 100. Okay? Again, remember I want all decimals, all of our numbers end up being whole numbers. Okay? So to do that, we have to multiply by 100. Okay? And again, we're going to distribute 100 to everything, to your entire equation. So that gives us 248. 100 times negative x, remember there isn't 1. So 100 times negative 1 is negative 100x. 100 times 1 and 400ths is 104. And 100 times 2 tenths is 20x. All right, now we have no more decimals. Let's go ahead and determine our solution by solving for the variable. We are going to, I'm going to add 100x to both sides. And we are left with 248 on the left, and on the right, we have 104, 120x. We're going to subtract 104 on both sides, move our constants to the other side. We're going to separate our constants and the variable. All right, and we have 144 equals 120x. All right, and we're going to divide by 120 on both sides. All right, and that leaves us with x equals, so this fraction can be simplified. You can simplify it down to a fraction, or let's go ahead and multiply that out. So 120 goes into 144 times, just one time. You subtract. And down here, 0. The 120 goes into 240 exactly. 1.2 times. We started with decimals. Let's end with a decimal, just like that. There is more practice for you. You can try those on your own and check your answers on Canvas, along with some practice ones for the fraction ones. And there also is an extra practice worksheet in addition to those practice problems. And again, you can check your answers.